But my guess is the reason why they are increasing all these collections, like for the housing levy, and they've also increased the NSSF and the NHIF. The reason why they're doing this, it's simply because they want to collect more revenue. A, just to have it and spend it and steal it. B, to be able to pay the existing loan that's there. So that's that I can use. It's like a person who is already poor. He's already in debt. He is currently borrowing to pay back the debt. But while at that, this same individual is still overspending. So we are still overspending. The ministries are overspending. The MPs are overspending with their foreign trips. The president is overspending with millions of trips. So we have all these loans that we need to pay back. We are currently financing our bill with this other loan that we keep on taking. The US election, which is the most interesting one. So for the US election, there's usually two parties, the Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats being the party that elected the former president, Barack Obama. It also was the party that Hillary Clinton was running with, and also recently Joe Biden. And then we have the Republican Party, which the most popular person running with the Republican Party is Donald Trump. So for US election, this is a funny pattern that happens for them. Like before 2020, it was Barack Obama, it was Donald Trump. Before Donald Trump, it was Barack Obama, which was the Democrats Party. Then after the Barack Obama's 10-year term, it was Trump's time. Then followed by Joe Biden's time, which is right now. So for them, it's usually that shift between the two parties, depending on what they really need at the moment. Because the two parties, of course, they stand for different things. But to just give you a layman's explanation to one of the stands they take, so the Democrat is more liberal, which of course stands for liberal beliefs, like the homosexuality rights, all that. And the Republican Party is more conservative on religion, culture, and the old ways. And there's a lot of stands that these two parties differ. Like for Democrats, it's more of pro-tax. Republicans, it's not really based on that. So each party has its own stand on different things. And I have a feeling that this time, Donald Trump will actually win the election, since the last time he was in power, from 2020, when his term ended at 2020, from 2016, that is, to 2020. So the last time he was in power, things went quite well, and the economy was quite stable. To the point that their income rate, their employment rate rose. So employment rate is quite important, since it means most of the citizens will easily get jobs, or they're employed. So an economy where most citizens are employed, I don't need to explain that. That means the economy is thriving. So there has been a steady drop on that also since 2020, after the current President Joe Biden took power. There's also concerns on the cultural aspects of where the country is going. So we are seeing the social cultural aspect. So we are seeing now a new change of how things are done, like things like mutilating kids in the name of gender transformation, giving them puberty stoppers. So there's a majority of people who do not resonate with that. And that's where they now will find it easy for them to resonate with the Republicans, because that's what Republicans stand for. They stand for conservative, ideas, unlike Democrats, which stand for liberal ideology. So most people seeing this will probably run towards the Republican side more than the Democrat side, just because of how the country is right now. Even in terms of economically, it's not doing so well. So there's some things that we as a country, Kenya, will be affected by that election. So for every election in most countries, during the election period, the economy does not thrive that well. And since our currency is majorly backed up by the dollar, so there'll be effects on that since we have backed our economy on the dollar. So let me just explain to you how that goes. Since at the moment we are experiencing our currency is dropping. The last time I checked, last night, we were at about 159. $1 is equals to 159 Kenyan shilling. That's really, really, really low compared to this. That's really high compared to what we were previously when we started this government. So it was at around 120. So we have lost around 25%, 20 to 25% to the US dollar. That shows you how much impactful the US dollar is to the Kenyan currency or even the economy at large. And it has a quadruple effect on literally everything. Like the moment you affect one single thing, that's now the problem with economies. Once you affect one major aspect, so the effect goes on to literally every single industry. If our currency drops, which it is anticipated to do so throughout the year, so we are currently at around 160, 159, and at the end of the year, it is anticipated we will be at around 200 against the US dollar. That will be quite high, and we would have lost a lot. That will have an effect in our country's economy because we have an economy that is doing a lot of imports more than exports. How does that affect a country when they're doing a lot of imports more than exports? So when we do exports, we are actually gaining the dollars because when we export goods, we are paid in dollars. So the global economy is run by the dollar. So the effect we have when we import, we give away. So we reach at a point where we are doing a lot of, imports and losing the existing dollars we have in our economy. And the effect of that, since we are backed by it, is our currency keeps on weakening. And there's more things that are actually affecting our country's currency. But the major one is that our existing exports have dropped. From 2020, we have been losing the existing exports. Things like avocado, which we used to export, we are now no longer. They recently did that, banned exportation of it. So all these things have an effect on the currency. And majority of the things that we use in our country, this few things, like the tiniest thing, like toothpick, we are importing them. And what that does to an economy is it weakens it, since we are currently doing a lot of imports. So on currency, there's a lot of factors that's affecting that. So what is our country doing about the issue of solving the issue of currency? So they're trying to increase the interest rate. So central bank increased the interest rates on loans, and the banks, commercial banks, also did that as well. Since if the CBK is increasing the interest rates on loans, so the CBK is bound to do that as well, and it has like a large effect on the economy as well, since borrowing will be expensive. It will be expensive to borrow, and that interest rate will also be transferred to existing loans that are there to cover up for the inflation and everything. So it will be quite hard for the normal mwananchi. I'm trying to relate all this to um, the normal individual. So if our currency drops as well or is expensive to the dollar, since we are importing most of the things, it will be hard for us to do that. And no one will want to hold the currency at all. I was talking about the loan interest rates. So the CBK had already pushed for an increment on that. And the effect is that commercial banks will also increase their existing interest rates. So currently interest rates are at around 12.5, and most banks are pushing it to have already not are but have already pushed it to 14 14% interest rate. What this means is if you already have an existing loan, it will be, you will pay according to the current interest rates just for them to cover up for inflation and everything, meaning loans will be expensive, the currency will be shitty. So that's a lot of things that will affect our economy. Another thing is the Kenyan debt. So we have an existing debt that we are supposed to pay. Our current debt, it's around 11 trillion, and we usually pay debts in dollars. So you see how one thing affects the other. So if our currency continues to weaken, we will have more debt, like the debt that we currently have. If we took the debt at around 120 shillings and we are paying it back at 200 shillings, we have already lost more than 80 shillings through that. And it's a lot if our loan is at 11 trillion, that becomes now a lot. And the loan keeps on increasing. And we are currently paying it with 70% of the revenue we are collecting. Despite us increasing the revenue, we are collecting less revenue. That means a lot of people are exiting the economy in terms of business wise, or they're not paying the taxes, since this government is more tax centered, and so there's been a decrease in the tax collection, and the targets that have been set have not been hit despite a lot of increment, and the taxes the tax they collect keep on reducing. The more they try to tighten the belt, the more they collect less. That shows you the effect of how people react to certain measures put by the government. So there's also that issue of, the debt that we have to pay. And the issue is we keep on taking other loans to try and cover up and pay the existing ones, while at the same time our expenditure is quite high. That's like an analogy that I can use. It's like a person who is already poor, he's already in debt, he is currently borrowing to pay back the debt. But while at that, this same individual is still overspending. So we are still overspending. The ministries are overspending. The MPs are overspending with their foreign trips. The president is overspending with millions of trips. So we have all these loans that we need to pay back. We are currently financing our bill with this other loan that we keep on taking while servicing the loan with another loan. So we are putting ourselves in a debt cycle. And the worst thing is we are continuing to spend more at the same time, because the first thing they would have done to save such a situation is try as much as possible not to spend a lot. So we would have cut down on the costs we already have. What they did do is they allowed Um, they allowed them to continue deducting until 26th of January this month, where they will have the final, they'll do the final now decision of how or if the housing levy will continue. But as at now, the deduction still goes on. So why it's a controversy, it's because how the president was, trying to say that the court was corrupt simply because the court went against him and nullified it. And he sort of knows that even the Court of Appeal that's supposed to make the final decision will still throw it away. That's why he is so, focused on trying to say they are corrupt. And he's trying to put down the iron fist. But it's quite hard when you do that in a democratic country, simply because people know that some things are supposed to be done and the system should work in a specific way. If it was North Korea, where democracy is a foreign word, you can literally do that. But in a country like ours, where there is democracy and separation of power, at least for the judiciary, there is that. Because for parliament, even, the reason why the finance bill passed is because, the legislature and the executive, which is run by the president, are at bed. That's why things go his way. But right now, the judiciary is separate, and they decided to nullify it. So do I think it's valid for them to nullify it? Yes, I do. Simply because that's not the priority that we want right now. I've already talked about the things that the country is going through. We have high debt. We are, have high debt. Our currency is crumbling against the dollar. So we have these economic issues that we should face and address that would, come back and help the people. But then now we focus on this thing. But my guess is the reason why they are increasing all these collections, like for the housing levy, and they've also increased the NSSF and the NHIF. The reason why they're doing this, it's simply because they want to collect more revenue. Just to have it and spend it and steal it. B, to be able to pay the existing loan that's there. So that's their approach of trying to pay back this loan, is not directly, because it's more of a psychological way of increasing tax. Because ideally, what most countries would have done is just increased the income tax that they collect from salarized people. But what now they're doing is trying to look for ways of collecting more, but not directly, like the increment on fuel, the 16% VAT, the housing levy, the increment on NSSF and NHIF. So they're looking for avenues where they could increase collection of money and in turn steal and pay back the loan. That's what they want to do with that. But now, for the normal person, this whole scheme, or rather this whole project, does not help the normal person. For them to be able to get rid of informal settlement, they have to provide the cheaper solutions. Those who are familiar of hip hop music, so for the US, they have a project which is not similar to this. It's literally called the projects, where cheaper housing is given to the citizens who are unable to, afford a house. And they do checks on their incomes and what have you, to just try and understand and make them, qualified to be in these houses. So they do some checks to see if you're able to qualify as someone who's financially not able to afford a house. Then they give you a house and you're able to stay there. But the approach that we're taking is, we are building houses with the aim of selling them to people, not at a subsidized price, but at a market price, which is not going to make sense because already there are existing houses. Yes, they might not be as cheap as maybe what the government would offer, but already there are existing houses. And the problem why people are not going for them, it's because of they are not able, not because there is not the problem is not availability. The problem is, affording it. The supply is already there, but the reason why demand isn't there, it's simply because people do not have enough income. So they're trying to solve a problem by the stem and not addressing the root. The root has always been the employment rates are high, the economy is doing badly, and the solution for it is not to try and build houses for them, then later on sell it to them. At the same time, you're taxing them. That's never the solution. The solution is trying as much as possible not to directly, the government cannot directly do things, but rather they should indirectly try to influence an economy and try to create favorable environments for such things to occur. If the problem they see is housing and the existing ones are quite expensive, then they should look for ways in which and create frameworks in which they can create affordable ones that are budget friendly, and at the same time they're not doing it directly because they need to be no the government needs to be separate from business. And that's a problem we have had since for us we believe in trying to do it directly instead of just creating environments. They could simply go to parliament and create a law that favors, if it's cement that is high, create a law that reduces taxes on that, create a law to limit over exaggeration of prices. Because for Kenya, mostly Nairobi, houses are over exaggerated in prices. So they can create those laws that limit extortion, limit high production in terms of construction, and in turn it will go and help all this happen. But even as they do that, the main issue has always been if the people are not well, they'll never go to those houses because the government can construct houses and people will be unable to buy them. And we know the few people that will be available to buy them, it will just be the same concept, the same investors who, have built expensive houses. They are the ones who will be able to buy these, government houses. In as much as they were trying to say, well, they will limit the number of units an individual person can have. But we all know how our country runs. So that might also, be hard because the money that they are going to construct these houses with it's not literally the housing levy they're collecting. No, this is just money collected to start the project and entice investors to come and join in. So in the long run, this is an investor driven project. So why do it directly to drive investors in such an environment of building houses rather than trying to create laws that will just make things run smoothly. So the government is using sketchy ways, but as I said, my guess is this money isn't collected to fund all these projects they're talking about, but rather to try and pay back the loan that we have. Because right now we're at 11 trillion and we are already borrowing to pay back the loans we already have. The Eurobond is due June, and we are looking for ways of defaulting rather than even paying because and we are unable to, pay them at the moment because the amount of money we are collecting as revenue even isn't enough to sustain us or even pay those loans. So we have to take loans to finance the budget, again take other loans to pay other loans. So we are just going into a continuous cycle of debt that will probably end in a really, in a really bad way. Because the problem with doing that is you keep on now remaining in that debt situation where you cannot get out of it. And it's just bound to happen that, the economy might fall and things might go badly.